It happens in such a small moment that most parents almost miss it. You're holding your baby after a long stretch of crying, exhausted, a little unsure, whispering the same soft words you've already said 10 times. And then, suddenly, something changes. The crying pauses. The body loosens. The eyes shift. It feels like your baby heard you. Not just the sound, but you. And that raises a question almost every parent has, even if they never say it out loud. When do babies actually begin responding to your voice? Is it happening right away? Is it just instinct? Are they soothed by the sound itself, or do they already know the person behind it? Because if you've ever talked to a newborn and wondered whether your words are disappearing into the air, you are not imagining that uncertainty. Babies can seem mysterious in the beginning. They can stare past you one moment, then calm in your arms the next. They can act like they know you deeply before they can even hold up their own head. And that contradiction is exactly what makes this so fascinating. Most people think babies start responding to your voice only once they're older, more alert, more smiley, more interactive. But the deeper truth is much more amazing than that. The first signs can begin earlier than most parents realize, and they don't always look the way people expect. So if you've ever wondered whether your baby recognizes you, whether your voice matters yet, or when those first true responses usually begin, the answer is both simpler and more emotional than it seems. And once you understand what counts as a response, you start seeing your baby in a completely different way. Because the real surprise is not just when babies hear your voice, it's what their tiny brain may already be doing with it. The common explanation goes something like this. Babies hear your voice after birth, and then a few months later, they slowly start reacting. Simple, clean, easy to understand. But that explanation is incomplete. Yes, babies absolutely grow more obvious in their reactions over the first few months. Around the early weeks, many newborn responses are subtle. They may pause, settle, blink, shift their breathing, change their sucking pattern during feeding, or briefly widen their eyes when they hear a familiar voice. By about 1 to 3 months, those responses often become easier to notice. You may see your baby calm when spoken to, turn towards sound, smile at your voice, or begin making little sounds back. Later, those reactions become more social, more animated, more clearly intentional. But here's what that simple explanation misses. Responding is not the same as performing. Babies often begin processing your voice before they can show it in a dramatic way. That matters because parents often look for the big signs and miss the small ones. They expect a grin, a head turn, a sparkly movie moment. But early response can look like stillness. It can look like listening. It can look like crying less hard when you speak. It can look like a tiny nervous system organizing itself around something familiar. And there's another thing the common explanation gets wrong. It makes it sound like babies are just hearing random sound waves and gradually learning to care. But human voices, especially familiar caregiver voices, are not random to a baby. They carry rhythm, repetition, emotion, and safety. Long before babies understand words, they are already learning patterns. Tone matters, timing matters, familiarity matters. So the real question is not just, when do babies hear your voice? It's, when does that voice start meaning something to them? And to answer that, we have to go earlier than most people expect. Because the story of your baby responding to your voice may actually begin before the day you even met them. By the later part of pregnancy, babies can already hear muffled sound from the outside world. Not with perfect clarity, not like we do, but enough to take in rhythm and repeated patterns. And among all the sounds reaching them, one voice is especially available again and again, the voice of the person carrying them. That repeated exposure matters. Research has shown that newborns can show preference for the birthing parent's voice very early after birth. In other words, many babies are not meeting that voice for the first time in the hospital room. They've been listening to a version of it for weeks. That doesn't mean a baby understands language before birth. It means the brain is already learning familiarity. It is already building a sensory memory for sound patterns, especially melody, cadence, and emotional tone. So when your newborn seems to settle at the sound of a familiar voice, that response may be part recognition, part regulation, and part relief. Something in their world still sounds known. This is why early response can begin astonishingly soon. In the birth to 3-month period, many babies may calm when spoken to, quiet when hearing a familiar voice, or seem to recognize the difference between comforting speech and other noise. Not every baby does this in the same dramatic way, and not every moment is consistent. Newborns are sleepy, overwhelmed, and still adjusting to life outside the womb. But the groundwork is there. Then, over the first month, something even more interesting happens. Your baby starts connecting voice with person. Not just sound with sensation, but sound with relationship. The same voice keeps showing up with warmth, holding, feeding, eye contact, and comfort. That repetition helps the brain organize the world. This voice belongs to someone. This someone means something. And this is where many parents underestimate their power. You may think you are just talking while changing a diaper or pacing at 3 a.m., but your baby is collecting patterns. The nervous system is asking over and over, what follows this sound? Relief? Closeness? Calm? Attention? That is the beginning of meaning. But hearing and recognizing a voice is only the first layer. The next layer is even more powerful, because this is where voice stops being just familiar and starts becoming interactive. By around 1 to 3 months, responses to your voice usually become more visible. This is the stage where many parents start feeling, okay, now something is really happening. Your baby may turn toward the direction of sound, quiet to listen, brighten when you speak, or begin smiling at the sound of your voice. Around 2 months, many babies also start cooing, which means the interaction is no longer one way. They are not just receiving, they are beginning to answer. And this is the deeper twist. Your baby is not simply reacting to sound. They are practicing conversation before language. Development experts often describe early caregiver-baby communication as a kind of back-and-forth exchange. You speak, your baby pauses. Your baby coos, you answer. Your baby looks, you respond. These tiny exchanges help build the foundations of communication, emotional security, and social learning. Before babies can understand words, they are learning the structure of human connection. They are learning that signals go out and someone comes back. That is why tone matters so much. Babies are highly sensitive to the emotional quality of voices. A soft, playful, sing-song voice tends to hold their attention better than flat noise because it is easier for their developing brain to process. A warm voice is not just pleasant, it is informative. It tells them whether the world feels calm, engaged, safe, or tense. By around 3 to 4 months, many babies become even more responsive. They may watch your mouth when you speak, react differently to changes in tone, babble more during face-to-face time, and become visibly excited by familiar voices. At that point, your voice is doing several jobs at once. It is helping regulate emotion, supporting early language learning, and strengthening the bond between you. And yet, there is something beautiful here that parents often miss. Babies do not only respond when they are happy. Sometimes the strongest voice response shows up when they are overwhelmed. A baby who settles faster with your voice is not being too dependent. A baby who stops crying when you speak is not being spoiled. Very often, that is regulation in action. Your voice is acting like a bridge between distress and safety. Which means this milestone is not just about hearing. It is about trust beginning to take shape. And once you see that, the emotional meaning of this stage gets a whole lot deeper. For a new parent, this can be one of the most healing things to understand. Your baby may start responding to your voice before they can reach for you, before they can say anything back, before they can even clearly smile every time. So if you've been talking to your baby and wondering whether it matters, it does. It matters when you narrate what you're doing in the middle of a diaper change. It matters when you say, "I know, I'm here," during a fussy evening. It matters when you answer their tiny sounds as if they are meaningful, because to your baby, they are. Those small voice moments are not extra. They are part of how a baby learns connection. And this is especially important for parents who worry because their baby seems to calm faster with one person than another. In many families, babies do show stronger or quicker responses to certain voices at certain times. That can reflect familiarity, timing, pitch, regulation patterns, or simply who has been present most consistently in a specific kind of moment. It does not automatically mean your baby loves one person more. Babies can form strong attachments with more than one caregiver, and those relationships can look different while still being deeply secure. Now, one gentle caution. Milestones happen in ranges, not on a perfect schedule. Some babies are more expressive, some are quieter observers. But if a baby does not seem to react to loud sounds, does not calm or shift at all when spoken to over time, or shows very little interest in voices as the weeks go on, that is worth bringing up with a pediatrician. Not as a reason to panic, but as a reason to pay attention. Early support matters when something needs a closer look. Still, for most babies, voice response unfolds gradually. First recognition, then calming, then listening, then smiling, then cooing back. And in that progression, something incredible is happening. Your baby is learning that people are reachable, that communication is possible, and that comfort can come from connection. Which brings us to the most reassuring part of all. Because once you understand the timeline, you stop asking, "Am I doing enough?" and start seeing how much may already be happening. So when do babies usually begin responding to your voice? The shortest answer is this. The process often begins earlier than it looks. Many babies are already familiar with a caregiver's voice by birth. In the first weeks, response may look like calming, pausing, or quieting to listen. By around 1 to 3 months, many babies begin showing more obvious reactions, like turning toward sound, smiling when spoken to, or making sounds back. And over the next months, that response becomes more social, more emotional, and more clearly interactive. But maybe the most important thing to remember is this. Your baby does not need to perform their connection for it to be real. A tiny pause in crying can be a response. A softened body can be a response. A still, listening face can be a response. A little coo after you speak can be a response. These moments may seem small, but they are the beginning of relationship, language, and trust. So keep talking, keep singing, keep answering those tiny sounds. Keep using your voice not because your baby understands every word, but because your baby is learning you, the rhythm of you, the emotional texture of you, the fact that when they send a signal into the world, someone comes back. And if no one has told you this lately, let this be the reminder. Even when it feels repetitive, even when your baby is too little to give you much back, your presence is doing more than you can see. If this helped you understand your baby a little more deeply, stay with this channel, because the next question parents usually ask after this one is just as fascinating.